Coming up on Catholic in America.
We were flying from Kyrgyzstan into Afghanistan, and everyone agreed, go ahead, chaplain, pray.
We have to be there for them in those moments. That brings out what's best in America, that brings out what's best in people of faith. And without the military chaplain, we wouldn't be helping them when they need us the most.
One of the greatest things that I love about being Catholic is just the connectedness of the community.
This is the fullness of the gift that God wishes us to know and to experience.
I would like other people to receive that same joy and freedom.
You know, when you love people, you want the very best for them.
We are invited to join Christ on his journey. Our journey of faith is with him.
Hi, I'm Father Tony.
I'm Father Patrick Gallagher.
Father David Shoemaker.
Father Dennis Berry.
And you're watching Catholic in America.
Hello and welcome to Catholic in America. I'm Deacon Mike Theobald, and today we're going to be discussing the role of our clergy serving as chaplains to our military members in combat. With me today is Father Jim Hamel and Father Pete Zalewski. Father Jim, I know you've been an Air Force chaplain now for 16 years.
That's right.
And Father Pete, you are a local diocese pastor, but you're also a chaplain in the Air National Guard.
Right.
Well, I want to thank you both for being here today, and also thank you for your service.
Great to be here.
As a retired military officer, I've certainly seen that there are many challenges that our troops face, and those challenges are multiplied when they're sent overseas on multiple deployments and contingencies. What kind of things do you see that they're worried about?
When they're sent downrange into a war zone, they not only worry about how everyone back home is doing and whether or not their lawn is getting mowed and their bills are being paid, and if someone is sick, if they're getting the proper care and treatment. They're also worried about their safety downrange and what they're going to do tomorrow. And when you combine all those combinations of things, it can put a lot of stress on an individual, and it's a great place and an opportunity for a chaplain to be there administering to them.
And then after combat, or after seeing death, maybe the death of the enemy, but also of friends, there'll be a lot of spiritual questions. Is there more I could have done? You know, what's the meaning of all of this? Am I fighting for something that's important? All those, I guess they call those existential questions. You know, what is life about? And that's where faith really comes in. And history has shown, our experience as human beings has shown, it really helps to have somebody who represents faith and can teach about faith and answer some of those questions.
Father Jim, you're currently serving at Eglin Air Force Base. How many times have you deployed overseas?
I've deployed 4 times, and the last 2 were to Iraq and Afghanistan.
What value did the troops see in your presence?
Well, they were certainly happy to see me get on the plane with them when we were going to Afghanistan, for example. And I sort of commandeered the microphone before we took off, and I said, if you don't mind, I would like to say a prayer. We were flying from Kyrgyzstan into Afghanistan, and everyone agreed, go ahead, chaplain, pray, because we were all going into the same spot. So I think they were thrilled to have a chaplain on board.
Every time we sent out a mission, we'd pray for those men on that mission. We'd say the rosary for them. And we are certain that some of those men came back in circumstances where they otherwise would not have if the miraculous hadn't have intervened. You know, in combat, there's so many fears, there's so many stresses. The person cannot also act as their own chaplain. They need somebody there to be there for them in that capacity.
Well, you both described needs that the chaplain is filling, but isn't this something that a psychologist or a counselor or even a morale officer could handle? Why bring religion into this?
I think there's something that almost everyone acknowledges, is that there is a spiritual side or nature to man. Yes, psychologists and counselors do meet a certain level of need that we have as human beings, but there's something deeper And one of the things I like to point out is when some of these Eastern European countries were joining NATO for the first time after the Iron Curtain was lifted, before they were allowed to join NATO, they were told they had to establish a chaplain corps because the NATO countries knew the value of the chaplaincy.
You know, under natural law and under our Constitution, our soldiers and sailors, airmen, Marine, they have a right to practice their faith. And so chaplains are there for that. But on the practical level, you know, a psychologist is not going to be leading a memorial service when someone dies. Psychologist isn't going to answer that ethical question of, okay, I've had to kill somebody in combat, and I saw them pass or die. Was that right or wrong, Father? How is that justified? How do I deal with that guilt? Those are spiritual questions, and they evolve into the supernatural, the other part of us that isn't seen, but that exists and is very real, you know, our soul.
And now we're going to hear from our service members as they describe what having a chaplain means to them in combat.
It's important to have Catholic priests in remote locations for military members. It benefits in a combat situation mainly because, for example, with the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, but now we're asking the service member to go out and kill. So Catholics that have problems with this, or any religion for that matter, may want to reach out to the Catholic priest to say, hey, I'm being told to kill under this pretense. Why is that correct or not correct? And if he's having issues with it, the Catholic priest can certainly help out in those remote instances.
This past Christmas, a priest in the Navy volunteered to go to Iraq to visit the troops that are there right now. It's a smaller number of troops, of course, but they wouldn't have had Christmas Mass if he didn't go. So he went and volunteered to do that. So it's a special calling.
When I was a battalion commander out of the 4th Infantry Division, I had a brand new chaplain that came into us, First Lieutenant Ken Sharp. He's from North Carolina. He would go out no matter what time of day. When a patrol was about to head out through the wire, he'd pray with that patrol. And then the next thing I know, he started to go out on patrols. And our guys had such a sense of, you know, spiritual strength that he was there with them. And then the entire time that I was a battalion commander, we did not lose a single soldier in a combat engagement. And I told him, I mean, you can say whatever you want, but you know, he was praying over us. And I believe that his effective and fervent prayer, and he was a righteous man, it availeth very much.
Of course, George Washington had chaplains before anybody had figured out the legal ramifications of it. George Washington recognized that these men are in danger. Some are not going to return home. And he wanted chaplains literally from day one to be there for those who die, first of all. And secondly, for those who are, you know, bearing the heavy emotional burden of the war. The role of the chaplains was so successful in the Revolutionary War that in the American society, the presence of chaplains has always been presumed.
We thank our local witnesses for sharing their faith. If you have any questions about the Catholic faith or would like to know how to join a local church, you can contact us by calling 1-800-258-JESUS. That's 1-800-258-JESUS. Thank you.
So, what would you say to those who would suggest that having a clergy in uniform somehow legitimizes war?
Having doctors and medics in war doesn't legitimize the war because they're caring for the injured. And sometimes they care for the enemy wounded. Mm-hmm. They're not legitimizing the other person's side. They are just fulfilling their vocation to care for the person's body and to do no harm and to save life.
That's right.
I don't think their presence in a combat zone legitimizes war any more than a chaplain's presence in a combat zone legitimizes a particular war.
Absolutely. One of the things I really like about military chaplaincy is the way that the denominations, they work together, because you can't go into the chaplaincy unless you also agree to have respect for what other members believe. You know, we're not out there trying to convert everybody to one group or another. We're meeting the need that they have. And the people come to us and they know that they're not going to get proselytized or told to change their faith when they approach a military chaplain.
There certainly have been examples in every recorded history of war of troops leaving the bounds of the law of war. How do chaplains react to situations when our troops have exceeded those limits and no longer are acting American?
Even in war, there are rules. You don't go after and target civilians. You don't take disproportionate means to deal with the enemy. And the chaplains are there as a moral reminder of that. And, you know, if something bad happens that was out of bounds or is about to, or being thought about, often the chaplain hears about it first and then helps that to be dealt with.
I've heard confessions of people downrange who open their soul and say, I did the wrong thing. And boy, aren't they lucky that there's a chaplain there.
I want to thank you both for coming in today and speaking to us about the role of military chaplains and how they help our service members cope with the stresses of combat. Is there one final thought that you would like to share with us about the role of the military chaplain?
I think in the 4 times I've been deployed to the war zones, I've never felt more like a priest.
It's needed there. The ministry, when you're taking care of the troops, there's not a lot of paperwork. The ministry is right in front of you. There's not a lot of unnecessary problems brought up. You're taking care of these big needs. And our service members, who, again, are asked to sacrifice a lot and do a lot of difficult things, we have to be there for them in those moments. That brings out what's best in America, that brings out what's best in people of faith. And without the military chaplain, that wouldn't be occurring. We wouldn't be helping them when they need us the most.
Father Pete, Father Jim, thank you both for coming in today and sharing with us the role of the military chaplain serving our troops in combat. And thank you for watching Catholic in America. And please remember to pray for our service members, our chaplains, and for our nation. And if you're looking for a church or you're looking for prayer, please call us at 1-800-258-JESUS. And we're here to help. Thank you.